Hello and welcome to Open for Business. This is the show, as you know, born out of the initial lockdown when we provided a space for business owners to come on and let us know what they were doing, whether they were changing the way they were operating, whether they were still open, but we could click and collect as opposed to actually going through their stores. And it has evolved, and we now speak to business owners, coaches, consultants, entrepreneurs about their life stories, what they're doing still, what they're up to. And today is no different. We've had some amazing guests. Today is no different. Today I'm joined by Sanjay Shah. He is a speaker. He's an emotional intelligence coach. He's got amazing gifts that he can share. And he's a trainer. He's got some great online resources. We're going to be talking to Sanjay, find out exactly how he got started, what was his motivation, where he gets to today, and behold, welcome Sanjay, great to have you on the show. Please do tell me, how did you get started as a coach, speaker, emotional?
To be honest, it was many years ago, and I was going through a phase in life where life wasn't working, business wasn't working, and if I put it bluntly, I felt like I was a bit screwed up, and I was looking for an answer out of my pain. I was looking for a better life, a happier life, but everywhere I looked, everywhere I did something, it just worked for a short time, and then it kind of started to fall apart again. And I just couldn't understand why it would only work for a short amount of time. So I knew I needed to find a solution to that because, quite frankly, life was pretty miserable.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what were you doing in your life at that time?
I'd been through a series of changes. So to put it kind of in a very short context, I left school, went to dental school because in the background that I grew up in, which was in the UK, but within the Asian community, it was expected that clever students went to medical school or something related. So everybody was saying, doctor or dentist. I didn't fancy either, but dentist seemed to be the better option. So off I went. And I did learn a lot and I did enjoy it to an extent, but I realized I didn't really want to peer down somebody's mouth for the rest of my life, or working life at least. At that age, 40 years is a long time. And so I flunked one of the exams because I didn't put in the work. And I left that, took a year out, decided I didn't want to do anything to do with medicine really, but the only kind of option, because at that time the jobs weren't really forthcoming, was to join the family business, which is what I'd been avoiding all along. But then an opportunity came up to actually go to university again. And so I went to university, did an economics degree, and did okay with that, and then went into chartered accountancy again because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I thought, well, get a chartered accountancy degree. I don't really need to stay an accountant, but it's a good kind of a qualification to have. So there I was with the newly formed Ernst & Young. And within 18 months of that, I got made redundant at the beginning of the recession in the 90s. So that was the end of that career, really. And I did end up joining the family business, which was a retail pharmacy, and I managed that business for a few years. And when my father passed away, my uncle, whose business it was, decided to sell the business. So I had a choice to make at that point, and I decided to form my own company to do what I wanted to do. So in the intervening years, whilst I was working there, I could take time off to retrain myself, and I'd retrained as a therapist, really, because I realized that month after month, the same customers came into the shop with pretty much the same prescription, but nobody ever seemed to get better from their illnesses. The only thing that was common was the number of medicines that they took increased over a period of time. And for me, that didn't seem like a very good solution to treating with health. And because my father also then passed away through a heart attack, I was really interested in pursuing something that was non-medical related in terms of interventions. And so I launched off in business, having left the shop very quickly. I joined up with two other people, and we had these great dreams about what to do. And we actually did something which nobody else had done before, and we did it very well. But we didn't know how to run a business, and that business went down the tubes with us ending up in a lot of debt. Can you see the pattern here between?
I gotta say, you're a lucky charm.
And, so I ended up with a huge amount of debt. So I was broke. I'd spent all my money, and now I had all this debt to service as well. I started off again by myself because I had no other choice. I had to pay this debt back, or basically be declared bankrupt, and I didn't want to do that. And it took me a good amount of time. I basically worked my socks off for the next 6, 7 years, and started to get some raving testimonials from the people that I worked with. But I still wasn't really making enough money to pay back the debts at a decent amount. So it was still going to take me a long time to service. And towards the tail end of 2006, I was really tired and fatigued from all the hard work and the lack of quality of life. So I was good at what I did, and I'm sure a lot of people resonate with it. They're really good at what they do, but they're still not earning what they deserve. And that was me. And at the beginning of 2007, my body said stop. It stopped me through a heart attack, and that was a real kind of wake up moment for me. The heart attack actually saved my life because it got me to stop and consider what I was doing, and I realized that working hard was not the solution. There had to be a better solution, and I took what I already knew. I went off to America on several occasions. The money that I had, fortunately, I had an insurance policy that paid out of the heart attack. Instead of paying off my mortgage, I decided to invest it in myself and get retrained completely at a much higher level. I did that, and that's when life really started to work out because I took the tools that I had, I developed them further, and really got good at the emotional intelligence component. And this is key because from working hard, I ended up working less than I used to, and yet I was earning more money, and that kind of intrigued me as well. Hang on, I've been working hard all this time, not earning much. Now I'm working less, I'm earning more. What's going on? Yeah, and that continued for the next 8 years, and my business was doing okay, and I was getting healthier, fitter. I was in the gym regularly. Actually, was in the gym with my personal trainer when bang, second heart attack, much bigger than the first one, and that could have killed me there and then. The first one was a small one. The second one was so serious that had they not got me to hospital in a hurry, I wouldn't be here today. They got me there within an hour of the heart attack, and I was straight into the operating theatre where the surgeons in the NHS did what they do absolutely brilliantly. They saved my life, and I came out of that. And the curious thing was, and even the surgeons were curious that I didn't have that much heart damage. They couldn't understand how it got away with the second one, a much bigger one, and I still had a heart that was relatively okay on there. And I didn't understand it fully, but I had an inkling as to what that was, and that was to do with the emotional intelligence aspect of it. And so I came out of that second one, took a little bit of time off, not as much as the first one. I worked even less, and my business started to do that. It started to grow much more quickly. I started to work with not just good quality people, but people who were already successful. So these were people who had successful businesses. They were coming to me, interestingly, because they'd heard about me through word of mouth, through people that I already worked with. And what I realized was they had a need which the other people didn't. So people who are doing all the right things, they're working hard, but they're still not getting the result. And like me, they're working themselves to the ground. Well, one type, the other type of people who were already successful, and yet they didn't have the life that they thought they were going to have when they started out. So they were actually working harder after success than they were during success. And I helped them kind of really understand the emotional component of intelligence, because we have both mind and emotion, and they go together. It's not one or the other that's better, it's both together. And that was the key thing that I was learning that it's the combination of the two that leads to true and lasting success, not just success in the short term. Because I had plenty of successes, but they never lasted for me.
Yeah.
And if anything, it's like weight. You lose weight, and then you end up putting on more weight. Well, I became successful, and then I lost even more money if I was going the other way. And I figured out that when I combined the two, things improved. 18 months after that second heart attack, I had a third heart attack out of the blue. Another tiny one. It wasn't big. I have to admit that it wasn't big, but it was a heart attack and had to be taken seriously. And I called it my tap on the shoulder, which was asking me, are you still paying attention to what you learned? And I really was. So I cut back even more in the work that I did. And then my business really started to shoot up. And I've just had the best year yet, despite this pandemic that we're in the middle of. My year ended with 3 months of the pandemic behind us, and I still had the most successful year I've had in the business, both turnover and profits and all of the metrics. And yet, it's probably the year in which I worked the least. So there's a trend appearing here that hard work is not the answer to financial security. Hard work is not the answer to happiness and fulfillment. Hard work is needed. I'm not saying I don't do anything. I do work, but I don't work in the way that I used to. I do less, but I achieve more. And that's what I'm teaching people, how to do less and achieve more. And it's through the use of emotional intelligence. Now, I have to emphasize that whilst not born in the UK, to all intents and purposes, I'm British. And the one thing about the British is that stiff upper lip that we're taught. And what that is push down all the feelings, don't show any feelings, doesn't help you in life. And I'm not talking about pouring all your feelings out and bursting into tears and lying on the couch telling your life story. You don't need to do any of that. You can work internally. The stuff I teach, only you know you're doing it. Nobody else needs to know that. So I can use the skills in the middle of a presentation, in the middle of, talking to a big audience of people. I'm on stage, I'm still using what I'm teaching because it helps me do what I do better. I can do it in the middle of a training. I can do it, talking to a stranger. Most people are taught when they're young, don't talk to strangers. Why? Because it's safer not to. Not very good when you're an adult and you want a relationship or you want to talk to a business contact. You go to a networking meeting, but you're scared of talking to strangers. So the techniques I teach help me do that. And at heart, I'm quite a shy person, so I need those things. They help me meet people and then actually converse with them to a point at which they also get to know me, like me, and trust me. And then they want to do business with me. So these are hurdles I've had to overcome. But I do them in a way in which nobody else knows I'm actually doing anything, and people feel at ease around me, which is important in business, because until people feel at ease with you, they're not really going to proceed, however good your product is. So
that's true.
These were kind of lessons that I learned along the way. And so I started off saying it was going to be a brief story. It is brief because there's a lot that's happened in those years, but these 3 heart attacks were absolutely crucial to where I am. And the thing about them is I've learned I could die any day. So I'm going to make the most of each and every day. And that's what I've been doing. And what I realized is people like me who had a diagnosis of a terminal illness, say people with cancer or whatever, they live more than the people who actually don't have anything like that, because they know they've got a limited time and they make the most of that time. And if you live with that attitude, regardless of whether or not you've got an illness, you achieve far more in life.
That's really important, I think, Sanjay. It's almost as if we like sheep. We go along our lives until something happens that brings into sharp focus our own mortality.
Yeah,
Would
yeah,
that be
absolutely. And this is what I learned. And talking of sheep, my analogy around business is around sheep. So you have the shepherd. What do the shepherds do? They have a sheepdog to work with the sheep. The shepherd, they walk around and they're blowing this whistle, and the sheepdog runs around like mad, doing all the hard work, chasing all the sheep, herding them into this pen that none of the sheep want to go into. And then there are the sheep who just are pushed along in life to do what they don't want to do. So I ask people, which one are you? Are you a sheep that's being pushed around to do everything that you don't want to do? Yeah, okay, you get paid and you have a living. It's not really a life. You kind of survive, but you do what you're told to do. Then you're the sheepdog, and the sheepdog thinks that it's free. It's got it gets to roam around. It thinks it has got everything that it needs. It's getting paid a bit better. It gets to have a bit of freedom as to where it goes, what it does. But at the end of the day, it's still answerable to the shepherd. And then you've got the shepherd who doesn't do a fat lot of much, but gets all the benefits. Now, doing much or doing a lot isn't the secret to success. It's not, if you work harder, you'll get more. I know plenty of people, including me, who worked hard, they got nothing.
Yeah.
And there are people who don't do anything that get a lot. What is it that they know that we don't know? And what I've discovered, again, I've talked to a lot of very successful people. Some of my teachers are incredibly successful. They won't be known as household names, but they are incredibly successful. They have all the money that they need. They have all the time that they need. What is it that they know? And it was this thing around emotions that my teachers at least knew, which other people didn't. And that's what I've learned, and that's what I'm sharing now with the people around me in my community, my country, which is England, and more now because of the way the internet is growing across the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, can I ask, how did you find the emotional intelligence coaching? Obviously, just going back at one stage, when obviously your father passed, your uncle was selling the business, and did your own thing, and then you said you after last day to coaching, went to the States. Were you just like a general coaching, and then you've discovered emotional intelligence coaching, or how did that happen?
No, it was because I was looking for the answer myself. So I did a lot of courses, and then I got qualified as a therapist. What I realized in the work that I did was I wasn't actually being a therapist, which is people came to me and then they got solutions via talking to me or working with me. They went away, and then when they had another problem, they come back to me. I was teaching them what I did so that they could do it themselves. That was something, for some reason, I just did it that way. There was nothing clever about it. It's just the way that I did it. And then I realized, actually, I'm not really a therapist. I'm actually teaching and training people and coaching them to do what I did. And so when I started to do that, what I did wasn't particularly easy. So I was also on the lookout for simpler ways. And then I came across some tools which were more from a spiritual background rather than a business background. And I realized that they did the very thing that I did, but in a far simpler way, far easier way that I could teach to other people much more quickly. They didn't need any special skills or qualifications. What they needed was a desire to improve their life and to do what it needed. So they have to take action. You can't just come to somebody like me and say, okay, teach me the skills, and then sit there and don't do anything and it works. You still have to do your bit, but it's a lot easier than the hard work that you're putting in. And so that's how it started. And then a lot of people said, you're actually really good at this. Have you thought of creating something? And I hadn't. I was kind of too busy earning a living at that point to think about creating something. And a couple of them pointed out that the way I was explaining things were different to other people. And out of that came the model that I have that teaches people what I do. And it's taking the years of training. I've been doing this for 25 years. Out of those 25 years, I've spent the best part of 20 years training and training and training, traveling across the world to get teachings because they weren't available in the UK, and becoming pretty good at it. And then taking the best of the best, putting it together in one model so that the people I work with don't need to go and do everything I did. They just need to know the best tools and apply those, and they start to get results which are pretty good without doing all the hard work. Because I did all the research and development, I guess, for the other people. And out of that has come a model which includes a collection of different things from different backgrounds on there. So I wouldn't say that it was something that was consciously developed. It was something that happened, and then other people have pointed out to me that there was this thing. Had I thought of it? No, because I'm not particularly good at business. I don't regard myself as a good business person. I have advisors who were previous clients who were much better at me than at business than I was. So I go to them now if I want business advice, because they've obviously proved their business acumen. And I just keep things very simple within my business, because that's my thing, is keep things simple and focus on the things that I'm good at. And I have a team of people around me who are far better at business than I am. And if I need anything on the business front, I go to them.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And yet I see it, a lot of people when I interview them, and I, to a degree, am the same. When you're working in isolation, and you're trying to do something from scratch, you tend to try and do everything yourself, when actually the one thing that you love doing and the one thing that you're probably the best at doing gets kind of lost.
I remember years ago when I took on my very first PA, it was quite a lot of money compared to what I was earning. But had I not done that, it wouldn't have freed up my time to focus more on what I was good at. By focusing more on what I was good at, I ended up earning far more money, whilst the PA did what the PA was best at.
Exactly, it allows you to do what you're good at. Absolutely. Yeah. So on that score, can I ask? So what does working with you look like? If someone wanted to experience working with you, Sanjay, what does that look like? Different forms, different things.
Until lockdown, it was quite often just sitting down and having a cup of coffee with me, because I work conversationally. It's not about being in a therapy couch or anything like that. A lot of what as I said, it's all internal. It's through a series of question and answer, so it's conversational, just like we're having right now. This is what working with me looks like, or certainly on a one-to-one basis. One-to-many, me working with the group, is slightly different in the dynamic, but it's still very conversational. Now, on a training course, it's slightly different in the sense that there are specific disciplines or practices that I take people through that we do. And my sense is you learn a lot on a group course, because you're not just learning from me, you're learning from every other person in the room. And so the training can be accelerated. One-to-one, some people still prefer one-to-one. That's more conversational. And what I find is those people eventually come on the group trainings anyway, because they realize the benefit of doing it both ways. And many of them keep on coming back. And I remember being in America once. I don't know, it was the fourth or fifth time I'd gone to the same course. And I kept going back because I needed to really get good at what I was doing. And there was a guy who stood up to share his experience, and he said, I'll come back, and there are 5 of these that take place every year, and I'll make sure I'm on all 5 of them. Another American stood up and said, well, if these courses are so good, why do you have to come back? And he said, well, put it this way, every time I come here, my staff start to worry how they're going to cope with the business in the next few months that comes in. My income's gone up, my lifestyle is better, I'm happier, my health is better. Why would I not come back when that happens every time I come back? And that was such a brilliant explanation that I decided from that onwards, I'm going to keep on going back to the courses that help me, because I get better and better. My life gets better and better. I have more holidays a year. I have a better lifestyle. I have better health, actually. And I'm living each day. If I die tomorrow, I'll die happy because I've actually lived, rather than at that first heart attack having all these regrets about being too young and not doing the things that I thought I should be doing, and never having the chance to do them. So that's the key thing, is you can work at different levels. They look different, but the end result is very similar. And some people prefer one-to-one, some people prefer groups, some people are okay with both. It's take your pick. It's your life.
Yeah, oh no, I think that's brilliant, and I loved your answer to that person. Why do you keep coming back? And it made me think. Yeah, it's a bit like when you read just a simple thing like reading a book. You know, you'll read it, put it down,
Yeah.
act on it maybe, and then if you read it a year later, you're going to see different things because you've moved on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Courses, I guess.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Now, speaking of books, you do have a book on your website that's downloadable.
It's a very tiny book because I'm not a writer really, and in the things that I teach, I try to keep simple. It just gives people a flavor of some of the principles behind what I teach, and so it's an ebook which people can just download and get a sense of what it's about. It's only a sense, but it's something that a lot of people have fed back to me they resonate with, and then they get in touch and they want to talk more to me or to one of my associates, because I know that the business has grown so much that in the lockdown period, I've taken on 3 associates to help me cope with the number of people that were interested, because the lockdown, during the pandemic has been tough on a lot of people, including the business people. It's not easy to run a business in this period, but it doesn't need to be stressful, and that's a thing. So I've got through this in a far stronger way than I ever thought was possible. But the people that work with me regularly, their businesses, generally speaking, haven't suffered much either, because they've been handling all of this in a very different way to other businesses.
So like in a calm, rational.
Imagine being in a hurricane. If you're caught in the periphery, you're being blown around by the winds, you're being bashed around. The safest place in a storm is where? In the eye of the storm. So I'm teaching people to get out of the winds of the storm into the eye of the storm. And then if you stay there, eventually the storm will move and you'll get caught up again. So the next step is to move with the storm and stay in the eye of the storm. And then eventually figure out even that's hard work. It's easier actually to rise up above the storm and fly above the weather. And it doesn't matter what the storm is doing. So I teach people first to get into the eye of the storm, then to stay in the eye of the storm as the storms of life move around. And then if they're the type that want absolute control of where they are, then they learn to rise above the storm, so that it doesn't matter what the storms of life do. You yourself are always going to be okay. And so through the lockdown period and the challenges that businesses are facing, the people I work with are people who are moving around with the storm, or they're learning to fly above the weather.
Wow. You have some amazing analogies, I have to say. I've seen on your website you've got some great testimonials. Can you share with us some? Actually, we always like to ask. Can you share with us some successes? But equally, have you had any challenges in helping people as well?
The challenges in helping people are there. They're not challenging in the sense that what they have is more difficult. The challenge is they really have to make their mind up that not only are they fed up, but they're fed up of being fed up. Because the problem with what I teach is it's simple. It's so simple, it's easy not to apply. And so you take it, I've suffered from these challenges for years. Something this simple can't sort it. So the challenge is really for people to get, yes, something so simple can completely and utterly change your life and your business. Because we're taught that if something's to be good, it's got to be big and complicated. No, it doesn't. It can be something really simple. So that's the big challenge. The wins, there are plenty. And in terms of business, there is an accountant that I worked with many years ago who was successful already, and he had a business which was known in the locality as the best firm of independent accountants. So outside of the big accountancy companies, his company was the best known. And he worked really hard, and until one day his mother was speaking with him and said, Simon, you got coaches for this, that, and the other in the business. what about your life? That's a bit of a mess. Why didn't you get a coach for that? And so Simon had to sit back and say, actually, that's true. Because he was single, he was working hard. I remember him telling me early on that on a good Sunday, he would get to watch the football. He would have a steak and an expensive bottle of wine and a cigar. And if he was really lucky, he'd get to half time without checking his email.
Oh, wow.
Because the business depended on him. He was successful, he had a successful business, but he was working all the time. And over the course of the next few years, all of that changed to the point at which he had three successful businesses, but he was working far less. He was actually having 12 to 14 weeks holiday a year. And just completely switched off because the businesses were able to cope without him being there. And he's far happier, far more content. And now teaching other accountants what he does. So he runs a mastermind for accountants. He's a specialist in that. He's a good friend of mine, and we both feed off each other. But from working that hard to not working as hard and having far more success and fulfillment in life, that's what was important to him. On the other end of the scale, I worked with people who have had a terrible upbringing, adopted, including living out on the street because they ended up homeless, who are now in established careers, who are achieving things and they're happy. And, they had a very different background to the people who are already successful in business. These were people who were working in their life, and they came to me because somebody that cared about them had come across me, and they said, I'm going to introduce this person to Sanjay because they could do with the help. And there's all sorts in between. I worked with people not so much now, but in the past when I was more in therapy, with people who had terminal illnesses. And one I came across who came to my seminar, actually. I didn't know her. She came with her husband, and we find out on that she was living under a death sentence, and it was year 3, I think it was. So she'd been given 5 years to live because she was diagnosed with leukemia, and she was in year 3, I think, if I remember correctly, of that. So she had 2 more years in the diagnosis, waking up each day thinking, is today the day when it goes wrong? And she applied what she learned in that event. That was about 7, 8 years ago. She looks about 10 years younger than she did at the time. She's living an incredible life where, she's getting time with her children and grandchildren. She's dividing her life between here and Spain and doing things which she just wouldn't have got around to doing had she continued to go the way she was going. And all she did was come on that event, and a little bit after that, but nothing major. But her life changed so much that I look at these people and it feels like they've been given a new life on there, and yet simple tools, which I wish everybody was being taught at school level. But our education system is still in the process of learning things by rote rather than the practical things that make a difference to happiness and to fulfillment.
Yeah, I totally agree. That must be amazingly uplifting for yourself as well to see those kind of results. What a beautiful.
From a place of not earning much, from what I'm doing to earning a decent amount, nothing beats the look in somebody's eyes when that penny drops and they've got it. No amount of money will take away the pleasure of that. And I've been gifted with many such experiences, and to me, that's the real success.
Oh, fantastic! And can I ask, in these times, for the people being caught up in the hurricane, a lot of people are losing their jobs. A lot of people will take this opportunity to actually go out on their own. Have you got any advice that you would give anyone that's actually thinking of starting out by themselves? Any one little word of wisdom, maybe?
The biggest difference to me when I started to do things on my own was spending time and money on myself, because the more you develop yourself, the more you're going to earn. That's a direct relationship. Some of the people that I know who are the most successful, aren't the most qualified at what they do, but they're the ones who took time to look after themselves and develop their own skill set, because you're the only person that can do it. Nobody else can do it for you. And I was very fortunate to meet some incredible trainers early on who gave so freely to me that they taught me that there is a direct relationship between how much you develop yourself and how much money is in your bank account.
Brilliant, fantastic advice. And also, where do you see the future for Sanjay? What's next on your horizon? You still must have dreams and goals.
Yeah, I'm beginning to work with a small team of people that I'm training to do what I did, to learn this. So some of them already have the skills that I learned, and some of them are learning them. So the future is taking what I have, and I'm honest. What I had wasn't something that I really developed. I came up with a lot of different things that had similarity, put them together. What I've developed is a collection of tools which I've put together in this abbreviated form, if I call it that. But the real thing is everybody can use them, and it'd be a shame if other people didn't get these tools to make their lives better. And so I'm not bothered about legacy. A lot of people talk about, but what are you going to leave behind? Um, Hopefully some ashes, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is how I live, not what happens after I die, because the only thing that will affect me is how I live. What I do want to leave behind, if possible, is a group of people who are also helping other people, because one by one, the world can become a better place. And it's us taking responsibility for our own happiness and fulfillment rather than relying on other people or other things to give it to us, because nobody can do that. It's our job to be happy and fulfilled. And if I can teach this to younger people, and I have worked with young people, they get it far more easily than the adults. They don't have the stupid questions that adults have about, well, explain to me how this works and how this. None of, I haven't got a clue how a car works, but I'll happily get into a car and drive from A to B. That's all I'm interested in. But when it comes to something like this, people suddenly start picking up and tell me how that works. Most of the time, I haven't got a clue because I've just applied it. And if I'm honest, I've just applied it, and that's the way I want to keep it. If you really want to work out how it, well, go and work it out. You'll probably be dead by the time you get to use it to get the results. I'd rather use them and then figure out how later on. But the chances are, if you got the results, you won't be bothered with figuring out how.
Exactly, and it's the results that matter more than anything else.
Yeah,
absolutely.
One of my American teachers had a American saying. He said the only results that matter are the results in your pocketbook. Your pocketbook is their word for wallet.
Yeah, and that's it. That's where it really counts. It really does. And finally, Sanjay, the time flies by when I'm having a great interview with someone. I wanted to touch on a few ways that people can get in touch with you. Obviously, you've got your website. You've got the free downloadable book. Do you want to talk us through some of the courses that people can have a look at?
Yeah, sure. So if people are tight on a budget, they can just buy the online program. The online program is a one-day seminar that I used to deliver at a much higher cost. We'd recorded it, so I don't deliver it live anymore because we realized that actually people can learn off video as well. So there was a bit of foresight and fortune there that we did this a few years ago. And so you can watch the videos and learn the very techniques that I'm talking about. The first level of getting into the eye of the storm is what I teach on that. And it gets you started and gets you results. What I say to people, don't believe a single word I say. Judge by your results. That's the only thing that matters. Not what me or anybody else says, but when you apply the techniques, are you getting the results? That's the thing that matters. Because if you get the results, nobody will be able to convince you it doesn't work. So nobody can ever convince me it doesn't work because I've got my own personal results to it doesn't matter. I've got the results to prove it. And so they can purchase that online off my website. If they want to go deeper, one of the side effects of lockdown is suddenly online training has gone up. I've been using it for about 2 or 3 years, but people were resisting it, whereas now nobody has a choice. So more and more people are coming that way, and it's a cheap way to access what I used to. When I do this live in a venue, it costs a lot more money because of the logistics involved, the expenses involved. But online, you can do it for a fraction of the price. So, if you want to go that way, you can take advantage of that as well. And again, the details are available on my website, which will develop as well, because the nature of the business is changing, so the website will change. But if they go to sanjayshah.tv, as in television, then they'll be able to find the information there. They can connect with me on Facebook through the Facebook page, which is Sanjay Shah EQ, and connect with me that way, or they can find me on LinkedIn or on YouTube as well. So there are many different ways, and really it just depends what you want to do, how far you want to go. Do you want to learn to get into the eye of the storm? Do you want to learn to stay in the eye of the storm as the storms of life change? Or do you want to learn to fly above the weather? Whatever you want to do, there is a way to do it. What you got to decide is, are you fed up of being fed up of where you are? Are you willing to do something about it? Because you will have to do something about it. That's the only way you're going to change.
Fantastic. What we'll do on this broadcast, we'll put all those links in the comments so that everyone has got easy access to them as well.
And the final thing, Nick, is just contact me through the website. If you want to have a chat with me or one of my associates, we can arrange that. But you need to let us know that you want to have that.
Yeah, that's it. So lots of really easy places to contact you, Sanjay. Fantastic. So just wrap it up, Sanjay. Is there any final thoughts that you just want to put out there to inspire, maybe, or to help anyone along the way?
Life can be easy, and we make it difficult because of the way we've been brought up. And I use an analogy. If you've got a couple of minutes, I'll just show it to you. If you take this bottle, I say to people, we are like this bottle of water. Sparkling water, if you go to the supermarket, comes in different bottles, different shapes, different sizes, different colors, a bit like us as humans, with different shapes, different sizes, different colors, but what's inside us is the same. And I don't know if you can see that. If I do that, you'll see bubbles.
Yeah.
Those bubbles are the equivalent of the emotions that we feel in our body. There are energy that's moving, but with the lid on top, they're not going anywhere. Energy that's not moving doesn't work. A car which doesn't have fuel going through the pipes doesn't work. An electric car which doesn't have electrics going through it or is flat battery doesn't work. So in humans, our energy has to move. Our emotional energy has to move. And so emotional intelligence, if you want to learn emotional intelligence in the next 2 minutes, here's it. This bottle, emotional intelligence is doing this. So life will come and shake you up, and the energy is not moving. It's trapped in there. Energy that's trapped will destroy the container from the inside. That's called illness. That's called disease. That's called heart attacks. That's called all those things. That's called breakdowns. That's, all of those things happen. I teach people to do this. Just listen to this. Did you hear that?
Yep.
So let out the excess energy instead of blowing the lid off, as we do through rage. Rage is, there's so much energy built up, the lid blows off, and then the energy spews all over the place. But you can't use it if it's spewing all over the place. Life will come and shake you up, and the energy is moving. As it moves you can utilize it. This is emotional stupidity, and this is emotional intelligence. That's it. You need to read a book if you get this. It's about using that energy as it's flowing. And there are different techniques to do that. And nobody needs to know that you're even doing anything.
That is amazing. What can I say? Sanjay, well, that's my mind blown. So, what can I say? What a fantastic guest you've been. If you just hold on there, Sanjay, I'll just quickly close the show. Wow. What can I say, guys? That is absolutely incredible. What a fantastic guest. And as I said, we'll put all the links in the comments here. But yeah, ultimately, you can just contact Sanjay or one of his team and start your emotional intelligence journey. It made total sense. So here we go. That is a